Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon, and today we're going to be talking about how we got Sovereign support solo queue, as you can see here, with a 59.8% win rate, basically 60% win rate. And this is my fourth account to Sovereign, and then we'll show you my Thresh stats, because Thresh is pretty much the champion. We one-tricked, I think I'll pull it up in a second, yeah, here. So here are my stats. You can see I also, every time I would get autofilled on Vi, I think I ended up being on a 14-game win streak, so autofill was low-key a blessing, but overall, obviously, you can see we played a bunch of Thresh, basically one-tricked him with a pretty high win rate. And so we're going to go into a Thresh game, and we're going to mostly talk over what I did to climb rather than going over the game specifically, and we're just going to show you guys the game that got us to Sovereign, so let's get right into it. Okay, so in this game, you can see there's 3 Sovereigns on my team, and it was kind of a weird game. They had Riven Senna bot lane, definitely a very strange one, but as I said, we're kind of going to be focusing more just on what allowed me to get Sovereign, giving you guys some solo queue support tips, rather than focusing on the game super hard. Specifically, we'll just kind of have it on the background. So the first thing I want to talk about is champion pool. So for support, it's very important to understand that some champions just simply can carry solo queue and some cannot. A lot of engaged supports are quite good, but the couple things you're looking for, you ideally want agency. Agency meaning you have some way to engage. So if you're playing a ranged champion, you kind of like having CC. So, you know, for example, Lux or Karma, they have some form of CC, even though they are obviously ranged. So just having that agency to make plays with CC is very important. Having a strong lane phase is super important too. So a champion like Thresh, super good in lane, whereas a tank like Alistar, much worse in lane, which is what makes, you know, a champion like Alistar just not as good for solo queue, for example. Whereas again, if you're playing Karma, once again, one of the better range champions if you do prefer a range support. Whereas a champion, you know, like Zyra, like she's a decent laner, but she's not going to have that same like laning, you know, potential. And then something that a lot of people don't act like is important for solo queue support, but is actually having having supportive elements. Like it really annoys me when I see a lot of YouTubers or people say you need to carry on support, and they mean like damage, or they mean like lock in Lux. Like you could play Lux, she's not a bad solo queue support, but your job is not to take all the gold as Karma or as Lux and just 1v9 the game on support. I mean, if you were going to do that, you would just play another role. Something that's much more important is actually having some supportive elements to your champion. You can climb in solo queue, again, with a 60% win rate. I did so. You can climb with actual supportive elements. You know, I guess 57.5% win rate was the win rate on Thresh, right? But regardless, pretty high win rate for solo queue to get to Sovereign. And it's about having actual supportive elements and then finding ways to impact the game in different ways. Like this roam, for example. This roam specifically didn't do anything like super large, but the idea of these roams that I'm able to do, like I'm able to in many games have super large impact due to these types of roams that we make. And even here you see we're going to blow the Graves Flash. And finding these types of things is much more important. Having the lantern as a supportive tool, or having a shield like a Karma does. So like Karma, for example, much better carry than a Lux, who has a much worse shield, no movement speed on her shield, just overall less supportive elements. So you want supportive elements on your champion, you want strong lane phase, and you want some type of playmaking potential. Those 3 things, if your champion does that, you're probably good. Obviously Thresh does all those things, and Thresh does a decent amount of damage for a tank, which helps as well. So the first thing was my champion choice. That definitely helped me. The next thing was laning phase. So as it relates to laning phase, in duo lane, prio is everything. If you guys don't know what prio is, prio means having the lane pushed, having your wave, or the enemy wave rather, pushed under their turret, so that, again, you have more minions than them pushing under the turret. This gives you higher HP. This means that if the enemy engage on you, the minions will damage them. It gives you higher XP, not HP, sorry. But it basically just makes you stronger overall and is quite important. So having prio in lane phase is definitely the #1 thing. Then there's positioning in lane phase. So typically you want to stand on the bush side of the map as the support, and let your ADC stand on the river side. However, if you guys, and you want to be on like a line with each other, so you want to be able to draw a horizontal line between you, like you see right now with me and the Ezreal, where you can draw a decent horizontal line. Neither of us are going to get hit by the same AoE, but we're also going to be able to damage people on the same kind of like at the same time, right? Obviously here I'm standing back to lantern or whatever, and this is why, because we want to make sure we can protect him. But Generally speaking, you want to be on that horizontal line where you're on the bush side. Sometimes you're going to be playing solo queue. Your teammate's not going to do that properly. He's going to stand on the bush. If he does that, just stand on the river side. Just make sure you're not on top of each other, and make sure you're also still in a position where you can both hit the enemy at the same time. As long as you're doing that and you're basing your kind of aggression and your positioning based off of the or your ADC, you're probably going to be in a decent spot overall. So those are kind of like some of the main things to keep in mind as it relates to the lane phase. Then obviously jungle tracking is another important thing. And so again, I'm just mentioning all the different things that allowed me to climb. Obviously, if you're trying to improve, try to improve on one of these things at a time, then move on to the next one, and so on and so forth. But again, we're just kind of going to spam you with information here, since we have a limited amount of time in the video to give you the information on what allowed me to climb. So jungle tracking. Basically, the gist of jungle tracking is that the enemy will, if they start on one side of the map, then they're going to be likely to gank the other side of the map. So say he started blue side, likely to gank the red side, his red side that is, and around 140 to 210. And then they're going to go back to the original side they started on at 230. Then they're going to go back to the other side at 345, and then finally back to the original side around 5. These are all rough estimates. Obviously, it depends on the champion clear speed, how efficient the champion was, if he 3-camped or full cleared. A good jungler will almost always full clear. Only really bad junglers would 3-camp for the most part. But there's a lot of bad junglers in Wild Rift, so it's definitely possible that they do 3-camp. But if you're just keeping these things in mind, you're going to have a rough idea of when you could be ganked. And as a support, because you're a little less focused on last hitting, it's super important to jungle track. It determines when you're making your plays. So as a Thresh, for example, I want to make my plays when the enemy jungler is not near, or when my jungler is near, or obviously ideally both. So playing around jungle is super, super important, understanding that jungle tracking. So those are a lot of the early game things overall. Again, the lane phase stuff that we talked about with Prio, the jungle tracking stuff, making sure you're standing on the correct side of the lane, usually the bush side for the most part. And again, the champion choice stuff, having that agency while still having supportive elements. Ideally, you're probably going to have those things, and you're probably going to be pretty good overall. And obviously a good lane phase as well. So if you have all those things, again, you're going to be pretty good for the early game. Then as it relates to kind of the later parts of the game, setting up for objectives. So oftentimes, again, you want to first help your teammates push out a lane, and then after that, you're kind of going to go from there. You rotate to the objective, help your team out, whatever. Then there's kind of roaming to the first objective. So you can see, for example, here, I didn't roam. Main reason I didn't roam is because I just thought it's too dangerous. Like, they have Riven Senna, pretty good at diving my teammate. My ADC is probably going to get dove, and you don't really want to rotate if your ADC is very, very likely to get dove, unless he's playing really bad, in which case you just follow your stronger member. The general gist of support in the mid game is going to be follow your strongest member, but there's going to be some cases where your strongest member is already popping off. They don't really need you, and you just want to make sure your weaker member doesn't die. And that's really all up to you to kind of decide based on specific circumstances. So do you think like you being with your fed person is going to help them carry harder? Do you think that your ADC needs help? Because again, for example, a champion like Ezreal here, he's pretty good on his own. So instead, I'm going to make a play with my Warwick, bring him to the Orianna, and find an easy kill for him. So I'm making plays, again, you can see, with my stronger member. But then since my stronger member is already fine, like we already got him a kill, the mid lane's being pushed, we're immediately now going to protect our not as strong member of Ezreal. And then we're able to make a second play now with the Warwick to get yet another kill for our team. And so kind of just this map awareness of like, we're not spending too much time on a roam. We re-roam, we make the play, and then we're immediately moving to the next lane that needs help. Like, I'm very, very good about finding impact in multiple lanes. We get a lane pushed, we're already recalling, roaming, warding. We're doing something with our time rather than just sticking around. You can see I'm already, my Ezreal, he's going to get that turret. Like, I'm going to let him get that turret. I'm going to throw a lantern in case he needs it. And then I get out on the map quicker. So just this extra couple seconds that I get out on the map quicker means now I can rotate to mid, and maybe I find a pick on mid lane. In this case, I don't think I do, but again, a lot of times this is what allows me to kind of find those additional picks, or just finding those certain roam timers. So like, I've had multiple different games where we push a lane, we recall as the dual lane, my dual laner is a really safe ADC, and the enemy don't have good diving potential, and I see that my top laner has a stacked wave looking to dive, and so I go and I rotate top side. And so I've had multiple games where pre 6 minutes I'm able to rotate top side and help my team out really, really well. And often I snowball topside through that. And then you can even see I'm just trying to bring my teammates towards what they should be doing. So I'm trying to lantern them and encourage them to steal the jungle camp. You know, they didn't initially, but that's like we already realized what we're supposed to do. We push the mid, then we make a play, and eventually he does get the invade off. So in the mid game, again, it's a lot about getting that mid pressure, helping my teammates out with the mid pressure, and then from there, once mid's pushed, we bring them somewhere else. Obviously, it's nice as a Thresh, but you can really do this as anyone. Honestly, a little bit aggressive of me, this play, but it didn't work out too poorly. You can see, I think I do end up dying, but obviously we helped our teammates kind of get a decent little play there, so it's not the end of the world. And yeah, they do get, you know, some good plays there, so I think they end up dying, though. I think they get outplayed. I don't remember. Yeah, I think Riven ends up outplaying them. But either way, again, you just see, like, we use mid-prow to make plays, and that's why a champion like Thresh is really good for that additional playmaking potential that you have. You can just kind of constantly bring your teammates around the map and do a whole lot. So that's really good. Galio's Aegis obviously helped a lot as well. If you saw my stats, you saw that I had like probably what I think it was 130 S ratings. It might have been slightly less or more, but a lot of S ratings, like nearly a third of my games were S rating. That allowed me to get a lot of S rating losses or A rating losses and a lot of fortitude. That's largely just because if you play well, you're going to have good stats. But once I did realize the game was completely unwinnable, if I say I had really good stats, but my teammates were doing really bad and we were down like 10k gold, I would just start playing for KDA to make sure I don't die, play for CC time, play to, you know, just take some damage but not take too much, these types of things. So that's the thing you can do in some games too. Don't hard play for Galio's Aegis, but if it's those specific games where you notice it's completely unwinnable, and you have really good stats, then you can do it. But only then, not other times. And then again here, just setting up for objectives. You see how we are the first one on the objective right away. I'm immediately having wards over the wall. We're pushed over the, pushed into the objective, and we're able to easily set up our team just because we get to the objective first. And getting to the objective first is just so important as a support, especially a playmaking support like Thresh, because when I'm able to get on the objective first, which again we're able to do by resetting at proper timers before the objective, 30 to 45 seconds before the objective, and by pushing the mid wave before the objective, we're able to then go into the the river for free, camp the bushes, and it's really important because you can find really easy picks. A champion like Thresh is super based around finding picks. You need to find lots and lots of picks because you're not going to be as valuable as a Nautilus in a team fight, as a Leona in a team fight, even as an enchanter. But you are going to be more valuable if you find a pick right at the start of the fight or you find those early hooks. So just that extra, understanding of the game allows us to be quite good. And then here we make sure to use our Proto Belt to proc the Oriana's crown. And then we're able to go onto her pretty easily here. And I think she ends up dying. Pretty sure she does. Yeah, eventually. Eventually dies. Took a minute, but she dies. And so there too, just aware that I don't need to be on the Baron. Their jungler's dead, and they're going to look for a steal. I'm going to go zone them off the Baron. So just those simple awarenesses around objectives too. You know, understanding your job. A lot of times your job is to zone, is to make sure the enemy can't randomly get a lucky steal over the wall or anything like that. And just those simple things, again, they all add up. So really the gist of support is like, yes, support's a little harder to climb in solo queue compared to some of the other carry roles, but that doesn't mean you can't. You just have to be able to find impact in these types of ways through these roams, through winning a lot of lanes, which is why you want to have these early laners, through these playmaking, and you have to do all of these things is the difference. Like, as some of the other roles, it's a little more forgiving, because if you make a mistake on jungle, like, you still might have 1,000,000 gold if you play properly and you farm properly, even if you make a mistake. But when it comes to support, you kind of have to be, constantly providing value to your team, because, again, if you're, like, ever making a mistake, your carry might die, and your carry might have bad mental, or you might just not know how to play. You just might not know how to play very well. Like, a lot of the carries you get aren't actually good. Like, there's plenty of games where, and I'll probably sound cocky here, but I suppose it's not that weird for me to be cocky if I have 4 accounts in Sovereign, and I've hit rank 1 and whatever, just because I gotta flex on you guys real quick. But generally speaking, like, I'll have a fed carry, and the reason they're fed is because I'm their support. Like, they're not fed because they're good at the game. Like, there's plenty of times I've had like a 51% win rate, hard stuck challenger player who's only high because of the Galio's Aegis or whatever, and we make enough plays for them to like be ahead, because sometimes we do make really good plays in lane or whatever. They get ahead, and they don't know how to play with their lead. So if I'm not constantly facilitating properly, constantly making the plays to make sure they survive, having really good lanterns when they do know what lantern does, which is surprisingly rare, you know, they're gonna lose, and it's gonna be a lot more punishing. So you have to find all these different ways to make impact, from the roaming, from the lane phase, from understanding setups for objectives. All these small things add up so much more in support than other roles, because you just don't have the ability to click the buttons for your carries, and you can't carry a game alone on support. I don't care what people tell you about locking in Zyra or Lux. Why would you lock in Zyra or Lux support when you can do it mid, and you can have 3,000 or 4,000 more gold on average than you are in support? Like, it just doesn't make sense. No matter how good you are at Lux support, your gold per minute's not going to be high enough to consistently carry games by yourself. So why would you do it? It just doesn't make sense to me. It never has made sense to me. Now, there's times where a champion is so strong in the meta or has such a good lane phase that you can play it anyway. So, like, say Lux was just super strong and had super broken numbers, then she could be a good support, but she'd be a good support because she has broken numbers, not because her kit works well for support. And that's kind of what people need to understand. Or like their specific lane matchup. So like Caitlyn Lux are really good, for example, as a combo, because they have CC, they can combo their CC, and they lane super well. So like, I'm not saying you can never play Lux support. I'm saying it's not a solo queue option for every game, the same way that a champion like Thresh really is. I mean, obviously you saw I literally one-tricked him. And again, a champion like Nautilus, in a lot of different ones, a lot better for solo queue. And I do just think that's kind of something that people overall misunderstand about support a little bit. Like, you don't need to play even the Swain support, for example. Like, these types of champs, in my opinion, are not ideal. Like, again, you could climb on them. Like, I'm sure if I one-tricked Lux and my skill of Lux was the same as my skill of Thresh, I could also hit Sovereign. It's just, ultimately, whatever is fun for you is what you should play. So I'm not telling you to never play this. I'm just telling you it's not needed for solo queue, is essentially the gist of it. But yeah, I think we've gone over a majority of the sort of tips at this point. You can see, you know, just some little random fighting at the end, because the game's pretty much over. But I was very nervous because this was my 5th time. Like, I was 99 marks 4 times on this account. All the other accounts so far this season, after the first time that I was 99 marks, I got Sovereign. But this one, I lost 4 games when I was 99 marks, so I was like, I was really wanting this. And then my teammates would not hit the Nexus, and it was really freaking me out. You know, I was not happy about this, definitely. I was a little nervous here, a little nervous. I might have threatened to ban broken support from my chat if my teammates did throw this game. That might have happened, I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, at this point, we're just kind of trying to be as safe as possible, make sure the game actually ends. And you can see this game I end up going for like full armor, because they have basically, so this is actually an itemization thing I probably should mention. You build to stop the carries. So like, their Orianna was feeding and was super behind, and she's their only magic damage. So I built all armor because I noticed early that she was doing really bad. So you can build, obviously, you build full AD, or you build full armor if they have all AD, and if they have all magic damage, you do full magic resist. But even when they do have both types of damage like they do in this game, if one damage type is way stronger than the other, then you're going to itemize more heavily against that. Now, if there was, 2 AP, I would still have some MR, but maybe just like, more armor if their AD champions are fed. But since their only magic damage champion was so far behind, we end up going for just a full armor build, and it makes me pretty much unkillable. Yeah. So at this point, pretty much just we try to end the game, pray that our teammates actually hit the Nexus, and they do. So thank you very much, team, for hitting the Nexus. You can see we got Sovereign. Definitely was the hardest so far. The only one we have left is Baron lane. I have about 8 days to get Baron lane, so we're hoping that if I really grind, that I can get to Sovereign on the last account. We're at 64 marks right now. This is, as you're watching it, I'm talking yesterday. I'm recording this yesterday compared to when you're actually watching this video, or when this video will come out. You can see there is the Sovereign on support. Hope you guys found some value from this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.